Well, my name is Timothy Kalyegira, and I'm a journalist resident in Kampala, where I practice my journalistic work and research.
Uh,
That's who I am.
so, uh, what do you do? Like, which media house are you attached to?
Well, if you speak of attachment in the conventional sense, you could say Daily Monitor, KFM radio station.
Okay.
If it's about my own efforts, there's a website called the Uganda Record,
Okay.
and that's virtually it.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh, so, you're one of the people who have experienced the wrath of the government. You've recently been in solitary confinement and charges of criminal libel pressed against you. Share your experience with us on that.
It's a whole long experience. I don't know. I've just
Okay,
been-
summary.
Basically, it regards the events that of about 1 year ago this week, the July 11th, 2010 bomb blasts in Kampala city, which, when they took place, most of the world and the local media and much public opinion blamed on the Somali militant group Al-Shabaab, and which in my separate investigations did not seem to be by Al-Shabaab, and which I alleged could have been the work of the Uganda government. So 2 weeks later, at the end of July, I was summoned by the police and now have a court case on the 27th of July.
Okay. So is that part of the cost you've had to pay for investigative journalism? You can say that.
It definitely is. I mean, if you
So, okay, what would you want the world to know about the current political establishment in Uganda?
well, to start with, I'm not sure the world cares about the current political establishment.
Okay.
That world, especially the Western world, partly created it, funds it, supports it diplomatically. The media basically has backed it up. So I don't know what I can tell the world, but the world doesn't know. But what it is, it's one of the pseudo-democracies that emerged out of Africa toward the end of the Cold War, that got Western endorsement, Western aid, and essentially remain in place at the behest of the West and to do the West's bidding. But also the government that came in power in 1986 that found a somewhat docile and uninformed public and have been able to get away with so much of what they've done. Got away with corruption, got away with murder, got away with mismanagement, and that's the history that we're basically experiencing right now, including now the fact that the country virtually has no electricity. That's the way I would summarize it. In the mid-1990s, hyped up as one of the new breed of African leaders, so-called, which the former President Bill Clinton now no longer repeats. That's basically it. So it's just the familiar story. When you side with the West and when you front Western interests, then you become the government of enlightenment. The minute you turn against the West, then you suddenly become persona non grata, you become terrorist supporting country, you become a dictatorship. So that's a relativist view of the international community.
Okay.
You are who you are as defined by the West, and insofar as you relate to the West. If you turn against the West, then you become a dictator. If you lock people up in safe houses, kill people, are corrupt, but you serve Western geopolitical interests, then blind eyes stand. It's a familiar story, nothing intriguing about that. So what advantages government had different from its predecessors is they studied, I think, the Western mentality very well. They know how to manipulate it. So the very first thing they did when they took power in 1986 was to keep this sense of manipulating Western guilt, reminders of where were you when all these cows were
Being slaughtered.
yes.
Uh,
That is the story, and then Western guilt basically bent over and sorry, we'll never do this again, so what do you want? You need aid and all that. So that's the story we got after
right.
1986.
Okay. So you use the word pseudo-democracy. What does that entail?
All the usual things, appearance of a free media, a media that is vibrant in Uganda. If you come at face value, free to express many things, criticize the government, it's very vocal, debate high, but then of course the actual critical information, of course, is one you're not supposed to.
Congratulations.
So that's the basic story.
Okay.
They're just filming here. Someone to here.
Really, very simple things. Routine elections taking place every 5 years, sometimes even between the 5 years. But then the outcome is more or less fixed in many ways. Parts of the country, especially the western part of Uganda, allegations that the president gets 98%. And you wonder, but what is this thing that the people who keep giving him 98%, 95% are barefooted? And you wonder what's that great thing he's done for them that warrants the 98%. So that sort of country. Fairly free economy, chaotically free economy, regular elections, vibrant public debate. I personally believe debate, but not over the substantive matters. So when you really begin to touch the sensitive matters like what my allegations were, then the government comes in. But if you can argue and say, yeah, the government is corrupt, the government has done nothing, generic complaints, the general public debate. In fact, what happens, all this public debate actually helps the government, helps present the government as open-handed and everything, but without delivering anything. Because for the last 15, 16 years of FM radio station debates, we've debated almost to the point of exhaustion, and nothing changes with the service delivery. So we actually end up by our debates, in a sense, vindicating the Western image that Museveni is an enlightened and moderate leader, but in substance, nothing is delivered. So that's what I think is the story.
So currently the country is on civil disobedience spree, spearheaded by some groups like Activists for Change, maybe others who say they are concerned citizens. Do you see that as having any bearing on the country in regard to political situation?
It has some bearing, but not critically. It serves to remind us, some of us at least, who are skeptical about these recent election results. It just serves to remind us of the fraudulence of a lot of the elections we've been having. It also reminds us that not all is okay in the country. And as I was saying earlier, with this level of frustration we see right now, what makes you think that the same people 3-4 months ago would have voted the government? I mean, how is it that these Ugandans that are normally docile, whose average number of days demonstrating have been 2-3 days, and now they've sustained it? First it is the walk to work, then it's the traders, then it's the taxi drivers, next to here the teachers. So something must be fundamentally wrong with the country. That's what it is for now. But of course, on the other hand, the government is also very conscious that out of these civil disobedience and trade union demonstrations can arise through political resolution. So they are very careful to keep a lead on this. So there's heavy military deployment in the country, especially Kampala. So in that military sense, the walk to work and the other demonstration cannot cause a change in the government, but they can be a useful reminder to especially the international media in the Western world's diplomatic services, that not all in the country, and start raising the questions of how long can this go on? 25 years now, how many more years? Another 5 years, another 10 years? What will it be like? That's what I see. And also for those of us who have always felt there was something wrong in the country, this vindicates it. When the opposition parties began the walk-to-work demonstration, there was this view that these were just frustrated bad losers of the February election. Now the recent traders strike and the taxi driver strike is taking place. There are no opposition leaders visible. So it's gaining its own momentum. That's what I see.